We all sat through history class, right? We learned about the glories of Rome, the wisdom of the Greeks. We memorized the names of Caesars, pharaohs, and philosophers, and were told these were the giants of the ancient world. But what if I told you that, while all of that was happening, equally incredible civilizations were thriving empires that Rome itself saw as serious rivals? These are the stories that got left on the cutting room floor. The histories of powerful peoples and unbelievable cities that were quietly erased from our textbooks. Their monuments rivaled the Colosseum. Their trade networks crossed continents, and their ideas shaped the world in ways we're only now beginning to appreciate. Today, we're finding the missing pages and exploring the forgotten history they never taught you in school. First, let's head to the highlands of Africa, to a place a Persian prophet once called one of the four great powers of the world, right up there with Rome, Persia, and China. This was the Kingdom of Aksum from the 1st to the 10th century CE in what's now Ethiopia and Eritrea. Aksum wasn't some isolated kingdom. It was a major player on the world stage. Its location was pure genius, controlling the vital Red Sea trade routes that connected the Roman Empire to the riches of India. You can just picture Roman ships docking at the port of Agilis, desperate to get their hands on Aksumite gold, ivory, and exotic animals. Aksum became so rich from this trade that it did something only the most powerful empires could do. It minted its own currency, a clear signal of its economic independence and global standing. But Aksum's influence wasn't just about money. Its kings built colossal granite objects, or stelae some soaring nearly 100 feet high, that were engineering marvels of their day. These weren't just statues. They were statements of power, visible for miles. Then, in the 4th century CE, King Azana did something that changed the region's history forever. He converted to Christianity. This made Aksum one of the very first Christian kingdoms on earth and created a strong cultural bond with the Byzantine Roman Empire. In fact, local tradition holds that Aksum is the final resting place of the legendary Ark of the Covenant, showing just how deep its religious roots run. So, why is this powerful empire, a true contemporary to Rome, been all but forgotten? When Islam rose in the 7th century, global trade routes shifted, and the Christian kingdom was gradually cut off from its old partners. Aksum's power slowly faded, and it retreated from the world stage. Our history books, with their heavy focus on Europe, just let it drift into obscurity, turning a great power into a footnote. But for centuries, Aksum was a beacon of civilization, proving that the ancient world was far more diverse than we were ever taught. Now, let's travel east to the banks of the Indus River in modern Pakistan and India. Over 4,000 years ago, a civilization emerged here that covered more territory than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. This was the Indus Valley Civilization, and its level of sophistication is just mind. While the Egyptians were building the pyramids, the people of the Indus Valley were busy creating the world's first planned cities. We're not talking about chaotic, messy streets. Cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were laid out in a precise grid, just like modern cities. This wasn't a coincidence. It was the work of a highly organized, centralized government. Their engineering was light years ahead of its time. Almost every house had its own private bathroom, connected to a sophisticated, city-wide covered drainage system. It has a level of public health that many European cities would unachieve for another 3,000 years. They were also masters of standardization. Across an enormous area, they used standard weights, measures, and even uniformly sized bricks, a logistical masterpiece that points to a deeply integrated society. But here's the biggest puzzle of all. They were a silent superpower. For all their size and sophistication, we don't know what they called themselves, who their leaders were, or what they believed. Why? Because to this day, no one has been able to decipher their complex written language. Around 1900 BCE, after 1,000 years of prosperity, their cities were abandoned. The reasons are still debated, but evidence suggests a massive shift in climate. The monsoons changed, and the river that was their lifeblood dried up. So why were they erased from our lessons? For one, Their story doesn't have the celebrity kings, epic battles, or readable poems that Egypt and Greece do, because we simply can't read their writing. Their entire civilization was only rediscovered by archaeologists in the 1920s, long after the history books were written. The Indus Valley Civilization challenges our idea of what makes a civilization great, proving you, Dante, need giant palaces and bloody wars to build one of the most advanced societies of the ancient world. Next, we're heading to Southeast Asia, to the heart of modern-day Cambodia, home to the incredible Khmer Empire. If you've ever imagined a lost city in the jungle, you're probably picturing their legacy, the stunning temple of Angkor Wat. But Angkor Wat is just the beginning. The Khmer Empire, which dominated the region from the 9th to the 15th centuries, built an urban complex at Angkor. That was the largest pre-industrial city in the world. It covered a sprawling area larger than modern-day Paris. How was this possible? They were masters of water. The Khmer built one of the most complex water management systems ever created. Massive network of canals, moats, and huge reservoirs, called bares. The largest of these was 5 miles long. This system allowed them to control the violent monsoon rains and store water for the dry season. This wasn't just for farming, it was the empire's beating heart, supporting a population of nearly 1 million people and serving as a massive transportation network. But this mastery over water wasn't just practical, it was political. The Khmer kings were seen as their ability to manage the water was proof of their divine right to rule, and they used their power to build hundreds of breathtaking stone temples meant to be earthly models of the Hindu cosmos. So what brought this hydraulic empire to its knees? It was likely a perfect storm of problems. The very water system that gave it life may have become too complex and fragile, leading to environmental problems. Endless wars with neighboring kingdoms drained their resources, and a religious shift from Hinduism to Theravada Buddhism may have weakened the absolute authority of the god, making it impossible to manage the empire's massive infrastructure. For centuries, the jungle swallowed Angkor whole, and its story was mostly unknown in the West. While European history focused on medieval kingdoms and cathedrals, the Khmer were building a metropolis of stone and water that could stand next to any civilization on Earth. Leaving them out of our history books is a clear case of geographical bias, a failure to see that incredible things were happening all over the world. For our last stop, we have to go way back to the tropical lowlands of South Central Mexico, long before the Maya or the Aztecs even existed. Between 1200 and 400 BC, the civilization that arguably started it all flourished here. The Olmec, they were often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, because they laid the foundation that nearly all later civilizations built upon. The Olmec are famous for their mind-blowing artwork, especially the colossal heads. These giant stone sculptures, some weighing 50 tons, are carved with incredible realism, each one believed to be a portrait of a powerful Olmec ruler. How they carved these massive boulders with such detail and then transported them over 100 miles from the mountains without using the wheel is still a huge mystery. But their real influence runs much deeper. The Olmec were true pioneers. It's believed they developed one of Mesoamerica's first writing systems and created an early complex calendar. The gods they worshipped, like the feathered serpent and a powerful rain god, would be adopted into the pantheons of the Maya and the Aztecs centuries later. Even the famous Mesoamerican ball game, a sacred ritual sport, seems to have started with the Olmec. They created the cultural DNA for the entire region, spreading their ideas through vast trade networks that would define Mesoamerica for 1,000 years. So why do our history classes often skip right over them and jump to the Maya? It's simple. They were lost to time. Their civilization rose and fell a full millennium before the Maya hit their peak, and their great cities were reclaimed by the jungle. The world didn't even know they existed until archaeologists started digging them up in the 19th century. By then, the story of the Americas seemed to be already written, focusing on the later, more visible empires. The Olmec are a powerful reminder that history is built in layers. To really understand the pyramids of the Maya or the empire of the Aztecs, you first have to understand the genius of their mother culture. From the trade routes of Aksum to the planned cities of the Indus Valley, the water temples of the Khmer, and the cultural blueprint of the Olmec. Obvious that the history we learned in school was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. These civilizations weren't side characters. They were headliners on the world stage, powerful, innovative, and incredibly influential. They force us to rethink where greatness really came from in the ancient world. The fact that these stories were forgotten says less about them and more about how we've chosen to tell history. It reveals a narrative that is often focused on one part of the world, simplifying a messy, fascinating, and global story into a few familiar chapters. But history is full of these incredible tales, just waiting to be told. Which of these forgotten empires do you find the most fascinating? And what other lost histories do you think deserve to be brought into the light? I really want to know. So drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed rewriting the history books with us, do us a favor and hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next journey into the past. History is full of forgotten stories, and together, we can bring them back. Thanks for watching.